How you doing? This is Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts, and this is just a short OTT. Really, I wrote this out for people that post news and current events to social media and stuff like that. But like always, I hope that everyone gets something from it. And with that said, I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it. So tonight, something interesting happened. I was right in the middle of posting, sharing what I've been seeing, what I've been trying to make sense of in the news, breaking it down, and as it was basically happening in the world around us, And then all of a sudden, God stepped in. And I gotta say, it wasn't dramatic. No, there was no lightning bolt, and there was no booming voice from the sky. It was just a quiet interruption, a spiritual wait, a pause that I didn't really schedule for, And I realized that sometimes God interrupts us, not with answers, but with a heaviness that makes us stop long enough to, basically hear him. So there I was, mid-sentence and mid-thought, mid-upload, literally mid-upload. And suddenly, it felt like the atmosphere around me just kind of shifted. Something just really hit my head and my shoulders. And no, it wasn't fear, and it wasn't anxiety, but it was a spiritual heaviness. It was almost like God was actually saying, hey, slow down, look at yourself. Look at your spirit. Maybe, and just maybe, folks, you guys have had that same experience too. And I gotta say, that's the moment where your mind is racing, your heart begins to get stirred up, you're posting and you're researching your material, what you do, and you're trying to expose things as you see them. You're trying to connect dots. And then all of a sudden, God says, yo, pause. And no, by the way, it's not because you're wrong, and it's not because you're actually off track. No, it's because you're absorbing more than what your spirit was actually built to carry. I think a lot of us do that. And tonight, that's basically what happened. I mean, that's what he did with me. And here's the truth of it all. Here's what I realized. Yes, we need to pay attention to what's happening in the world. And yes, exposing the wickedness actually truly does matter. Yes, being informed matters. But there is a question that I think that we all rarely actually ask, and that's how much darkness can one person actually consume before it starts affecting them spiritually? I mean, think about that for a second, right? We're scrolling through the corruption and, we're researching the evil and we're trying to confront the darkness. And then we talk about, the plans of the enemy and try to expose them before they can do it. But we rarely actually stop to check the temperature of our own soul and spirit. You know what I'm saying? And that's what God basically made me face tonight. He made me realize there is a limit. There is a breaking point, Even spiritual warriors need to take a breath. Even watchmen need to rest their eyes once in a while. God doesn't call us to be numb. He calls us to be wise. And when you try to hold on to too much, your shoulders, they're going to get heavy. And your mind will begin to get foggy. Your heart will begin to get tired. And the result will grow cold. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed. Not by what's happening outside of yourself, but really what's happening inside of yourself. You start thinking to yourself, I got to keep going. I have to post this, I have to show this, I have to warn people, I have to expose this, I have to push back against that agenda, and I have to try to help figure this thing out. And then all of a sudden, God makes you realize all the while, God is saying, you're trying to stop a moving train, man, with your bare hands. Yes, warn people. Yes, speak the truth. And yes, folks, call out the danger. But we have to understand our own role. We have to remember, yes, you can wave your arms and you can sound the alarm and you can tell people and you can scream at them, hey, get off the tracks before the train impact actually comes. But we have to remember, we're not the ones who's going to stop that train. That part of it, that belongs to God. And there comes a moment where the weight, it isn't just information anymore, right? It will become spiritual. And when it becomes spiritual, you cannot just really push through it like a to-do list. If you begin to feel the heaviness, if you start to feel drained, and if you feel like spiritually overwhelmed, scatterbrained, if you will, It doesn't mean that you're failing, man. And it doesn't mean that. It means God is actually signaling you. He's trying to tell you, come to God and offload that. We have to remember, we're not meant to carry this weight by ourselves. We think that being overwhelmed actually makes us weak. But we have to remember, sometimes being overwhelmed is actually obedience, because it actually drives us back to God. It makes us go back to Him. This is what happens when we try to handle it alone. Your heart starts to grow cold, and your compassion will get dull. And your thoughts, like I said earlier, they're going to get scrambled. Your spirit will get tired. Your eternal peace is going to become contaminated, like poison. Then confusion will start to creep in. And then discouragement. And then the final thing, spiritual burnout. All because we try to handle a spiritual weight with our human strength. God never designed us to carry on the weight of the whole world. He never asked us to do that. And He never expected us to do that. All He did was ask us to come to Him. So I want you to picture this. A real father, a real listener, and a real protector. God is not distant. He's not out there rolling His eyes when we say, hey, Lord, this load is heavy. No, God actually wants that. He invites that. And honestly, He expects that. God says, cast your cares upon me because I care for you. He did that not because we're weak and not because we're incapable, but because He knows what the weight of the world will do to one human's heart. He wants our burdens so your spirit can breathe. You know what I'm saying? So listen, hear me out on this. Protect your spirit. Not everyone is going to think like yourself. Not everyone is going to see everything like yourself. Not everyone carries the same responsibilities in this world. But every single one of us, we need to remember to protect our mind, our heart, and our eternal peace. We have to remember, you cannot be awake without being consumed. And you cannot be informed without being overwhelmed. You cannot expose the darkness without living in it. Awareness is good. Discernment is going to be necessary. But drowning in the darkness is not spiritual maturity, folks. No, that's spiritual danger. So listen, pay attention, but don't absorb everything. Warn people, but don't lose yourself in the warning. Here's the final truth. Always remember, God has a plan. Always. Even when the world starts to feel chaotic and off-center, even when evil looks louder than what you can bear, and even when the corruption that you're seeing seems endless, you got to remember, God's timing is perfect and His understanding is higher than ours. His plan is always bigger. And sometimes His first step is simply pulling you aside and saying, hey, come sit with me for a minute and chill. You know what I'm saying? So listen, let me say this with all sincerity. Stay connected to God, and stay grounded in His Word. Stay grounded in Him. Stay anchored, not in the chaos of the world, but in the presence of the one who holds it all together. God is still in control. God is still moving. He is still working. And sometimes His greatest work actually begins in the moment that He actually interrupts you. This is stuff that I realized that night, and I felt like I had to let everybody know that does post news and current events and all that to social media, blogging wise. And we have to remember all of this, and always remember, we have a living, breathing God that is concerned for you. So if you feel like the weight is too much, go to Him and spend time with Him and let Him take that weight off of you before the weight will actually consume you. Because I got to tell you, everything that you're seeing in the world, I can honestly say, in my opinion, I think it's going to get way worse before it actually gets better. And with that said, this has been Mike from Mike's Final Thoughts. I hope you guys enjoy. You guys can expect that series special coming out real soon. I'm actually in the process of recording it right now. But again, this has been Mike from Mike's Random Thoughts. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and I'll see you guys real soon.